welcome to What's the Risk, hosted by myself, Daniel Crowe, and Peter Mancell, founder of Mancell Financial Group, a financial advice business he founded in 1980. This is a simple video series we hope investors can use to better understand index and portfolio performance, along with addressing some investment questions and dilemmas, and some retirement dilemmas as well. This episode is on some basics about finding purpose in retirement. Peter's helped people retire for 45 years, so he knows how retirees have thrived in retirement and how retirees have struggled in retirement. And generally, we'd find that having a purpose in retirement is something that is a positive, and studies show it can help us mentally and cognitively and keep us happy along the way. So Your Investment Philosophy, a book we wrote, shameless plug, available at Amazon. A disclaimer, please pause and read. Suffice to say, our intent is educational and not rendering financial advice. Why purpose matters. So whether we like it or not, going to work gives us a reason or forces us to move, act, use our brains, have social interactions. And if you retire from work, there's potentially 40 hours a week to fill in. And retirement is known to increase the likelihood of suffering depression. So that just shows why it is important to not just retire, but retire to something. And having a purpose is retiring to something. Peter.
Absolutely. I'd like to refer to, firstly, a study that was done by a professor from the University of Queensland some years ago. And she monitored the mental health of a large cohort of Australian men that retired. And those that found new purpose in retirement, that is the what they do, and understood clearly why they did it, their mental health after the initial euphoria of retiring settled back to a nice, steady, even keel. And they really enjoyed retirement. It was a good time for them. So this was a longitudinal study. But those that went through the euphoric initial phase, where all you do is play golf and go fishing and, love the gardening and what have you, later on found that the putts didn't drop and the fish didn't bite and the weeds kept growing. And they didn't have anything different to do with their lives that was meaningful. And they ended up the grumpy old men. So I think that this is a vital concept for anyone even thinking about retirement. Make sure you've got purpose. The very first person to ask me to help actually plan their retirement, and this was quite staggering for me because I was only in my early 20s, was my own father. He retired in 1982. And I look back, Dad lived another 13 years in retirement, and he was involved heavily in golf coaching. He was mentoring young business owners within the Northern Rivers of New South Wales community. He was heavily involved in Legacy, an organisation that supported the widows of veterans that were lost in World War II. He was heavily involved in the RSL. He had lots going on in his retirement years. A bit later again, he became really interested in growing and tending bonsai trees and plants. So it was a really good portrayal for me, for someone that found things to do that stimulated their brain, that engaged with other people, that they got to enjoy through retirement.
What is purpose in retirement? So essentially, it's just finding meaning through activities that align with your values. And it's a pretty good example there with your dad, Peter. They were things that he found meaning through, and they align with his values.
Absolutely. He was a returned serviceman from World War II, so he found value in giving to the widows that were less fortunate than obviously my mum was, because her husband came back from the war. My father was a very successful junior golf coach. In fact, the Northern Rivers of New South Wales, at a time he was known as the father of junior golf. And a lot of great golfers came out of that region, and they were nurtured along with his influence, in their younger days. He passionately loved working with his bonsai plants in his later years, tending to them very passionately, and he had a great collection that the family was able to give away to another avid bonsai culturer in his retirement. Yeah, he found things that were the reasons he got up each day. He also loved his children, and he loved to interact with the children and grandchildren, but he made sure that he had activities that did stimulate his mind, that saw him giving to others and getting fulfillment back from. And I would say to everybody, and I do say to everybody that we coach towards their eventual retirement and into retirement, you might need money to live on, but more importantly, you need something to live for. There's got to be things that drive you to get up of a morning, to get out and do things. And as you plan for retirement, think long and hard about what those things are that give you fulfillment and get in and do them.
And this isn't necessarily a retirement story, but it's an interesting case study because some people may recognise James Lipton, may know or even seen the show Inside the Actors Studio, and it ran for 24 years. And basically, every episode he would get on a fairly well-known actor and discuss their career with them from when they started, their childhood, and then discuss roles that they took on. He didn't actually start this program until he was 67. It became the thing that he was best known for in his life, and he didn't even start it until he was basically in his third act. It was said that he would put in 12 to 15 hours days working on the show, and I've watched multiple episodes of the show, and there's been no difference in his cognitive abilities from the first show up until the last show in 2018.
I think it's a good example, Daniel, because here's a man that at age 67 here in Australia, he'd be ready to apply for the age pension, were he to qualify financially. But he's created a whole new meaning to his life that's taken him on now, many years on. And what a great outcome, like he's been able to engage with obviously people that were very interesting. He's done work that's really stimulated him. What a fantastic outcome. And you don't have to look far. There's a lot of people have enjoyed their greatest success after 67 or 65 or whatever it might be. Look at Warren Buffett. He's made well over 90% of his total wealth after the age of 65, known as the most successful investor by many across the world. And he did it after he was supposed to go on the pension. So I think that there are a lot of great stories to be told and to be understood that people that just engage with life and get on with things in their retirement years, they're going to have a really successful senior part of their life. Just do it.
And the potential benefits, and there's endless studies that we can pull up, but some of the most obvious are around mental health and cognitive health. There's one study found older adults who learned digital photography and quilting and pursued it for 15 hours a week over a 3-month period had improved memory function after that 3-month period versus older people who only socialised. And there was another study that came out earlier this year that showed older adults who volunteered had a 43% reduction in the odds of depression. The other final thing when we say about learning or taking something on, you don't have to go back to university or something like that. You can go to YouTube, very simple, and there's tutorials there from everything, how to change headlights in your car and how to learn piano, just anything you can think about. Someone's on there giving tutorials on something you can actually learn and engage with.
Couldn't agree more. To me, that brings me back to the story about the University of Queensland study. And I've given the pages out of that university textbook to hundreds and hundreds of men over the years. Those that find new meaning, whatever that might be, it might be someone with a church background wanting to go and support Christian missionaries. It might be somebody like my dad that loved coaching golf. It might be a lady who just loves to produce quilts and blankets to give away to those that are in need. They end up the happy people in retirement. The ones that don't find new meaning, they're the grumpy old men and the grumpy old girls.
And sources and descriptions of data, well, apart from the studies that we cited, 5 decades of experience there, Peter.
Absolutely. I've been absolutely so fortunate to watch many, many people that have enjoyed what I view as wonderful retirements, where they've had really meaningful lives after gainful employment has stopped. And I look forward to the same outcome one day.
No worries. All the best. Thanks for your time.